this again. So when we see positive and negatives adding and subtracting of integers, we don't really care about this part. We care about what comes directly before the integer. So we ask, what is the biggest integer? It's 8. The biggest integer wins a sign, so I know that my answer is going to be negative. And then I circle what comes before the integer. If they're both the same, I add the integers. If they're different, I subtract them. So this is negative 9. What is the biggest integer? This is negative 48 is the biggest integer, 48. So my answer is going to be negative, and then I'm going to circle what comes before, and they are the opposite, right? We have a negative and a positive, so I'm going to subtract my integers. 48 minus 10 is 38. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Biggest integer wins a sign. My biggest integer is 48, so my answer is going to be negative. I have a negative and a negative, so I add my integers together. It's 60. Biggest integer wins a sign. My biggest integer is 1500. I have a negative and a negative, so I add my integers together, and my answer is negative. For this one, I have 3. All of them are negative. So I know my answer is going to be negative because my biggest integer is 6. And because they're all negative, I just add them together. 6 plus 4 plus 15. Make sense?
Yeah.
If there were some positives in there, like negative 4 plus 2 minus 3, then you would take care of the negatives first or the positives first, whatever you want, and you would do the same thing. Biggest integer wins the sign. The biggest integer is 4, but you're only doing it for the same sign right now. So we're not including the 2 in this yet because it has more than 2 numbers. So then we say this has a negative and this has a negative, so that's negative 7. Now we add in any positives we have. So we would do plus 2, and now we do the same exact thing. Biggest integer wins a sign. My biggest integer is negative. I have a negative and a positive, so I subtract, and it's negative 5. Is it kind of coming back to you now?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. I want to go on to the other book, Spectrum. And number 1 says it wants you to find the opposite of 45. So what is the opposite of 45, Shri?
Negative 45.
What's the opposite of negative 9?
9.
Do you remember what these lines mean?
Its absolute value.
Yeah, and what does that mean? What's the absolute value of 7?
7.
What's the absolute value of negative 34?
34.
Yep. So it's the number of jumps away from 0. All right. Do you remember our commutative, associative, and identity properties?
Kind of.
All right. So this one you can remember. If we are communicating, so it's almost the same word, right? Communicate, commutative. It doesn't matter if the speaker goes first or the listener goes first. So this one is order doesn't matter. So commutative is about order. Associative, now that you're older, I can teach you this trick. Here's a bad word here. I'm going to put it in parentheses. And this is the way to remember. The parentheses change. And then identity, you are you, right? That's your identity.
Yeah.
So the identity is 3 plus 0 equals itself. That's math's identity. Doesn't matter what you add to 0, it's always going to be itself, just like your identity is itself.
Oh, yeah.
So those are the ways to remember it. So we're just going to go through these. The sum of any number and 0 is the original number. Is that commutative, associative, or identity?
Okay.
Which is it?
Wait, which page is this?
Page 5. Is it commutative, associative, or identity? I almost said disorder. It's called a property.
For number 6, it's identity.
Identity. What about number 7?
Commutative.
What about
Commutative.
What about number 8?
Associative.
And number 9? Is the order changing? Is it itself? Like 9 plus 0 equals 9?
Associative.
So associative has to do with a bad word in parentheses. Is there any parentheses in number 10?
Yeah, I thought you said 9.
Oh, 9 is associative. Yeah, sorry, I thought I said 10. How about number 10?
The commutative.
Yep, order doesn't matter. 9 plus 5 is the same exact thing as 5 plus 9. What about number 11?
Identity.
Identity. What about number 12?
Identity.
What about number 10? B.
10B. Which one is that?
10B. Right here. Here's A, here's B.
Okay. Identity.
And that's not identity. Does that have to do with order? Does that have to do with parentheses? Or does it have to do with something plus 0 equals itself?
Oh, 10B. Okay, commutative.
Yep, order doesn't matter. And then number 11B.
Associative.
Yep, because it has to do with parentheses. Okay. So page 7 is all about opposites. I don't think you have to do any of those. I think you get it. If you have a positive number, the opposite of the positive number is the negative same integer. If it's a negative number, the opposite of it is the positive same integer, right? So we don't have to worry about that. And then number 8, page 8, I don't think you have to do any of those. We already know what absolute value is. So you can do it because it's super fun, because it's super easy, but you don't have to. So we know number 1 is what?
Okay, which page?
Page 8.
8. Number 1 is 91.
And number 1B?
8. 19.
Good. All right. So for homework, you are going to do page 9.
Did I write this on a sticky note?
Unless you can remember it.
Okay, I have to write it then.
You're going to do 1 through 12A, all the A's. And then you're also going...
wait, page 9.
9, 1 through 12, all the A's. And then page 11, all of the whole page.
Okay.
And then page 12.
All of it?
Yep. And page 13, 1 through 10A.
Okay, hold on. 13.
And then page 14. You're going to do all 1 through 14, all just the A column. And remember this, Shri, if you have a negative next to a negative like this, you circle it and it becomes a plus, and then you rewrite the problem and then follow the rules. Biggest integer wins a sign. The biggest integer is 30. I circle what comes before. If they're different, then you subtract. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. And it seems like it's a lot of problems, and it is, but they should take you no time at all. So, that will be, I think, pretty good. And then I would like you to do number 1 on page 10.
Okay. Now?
Yes.
Okay. Uh, 11/8.
Yes, and then we have to put it in simplified form, which means we can't have a simplified form. So
Okay.
we can't have an improper fraction. We have to make it into a mixed number.
Oh, right.
So,
Okay, 1 and 3, 8.
yep. So for homework, you can do 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, and 6A. Those should be pretty quick for you. If this is way too many problems, you can split it up, but I think they're going to be easy because this is almost like just doing, second grade math, right? And then
Yeah.
these ones, you have to think a little bit more about it, but I think it'll be fine. Even though there's a lot of problems, they're pretty quick.
Wait, there's 3 plus 4?
Yeah. Score, right? Okay. So I think you will be good with those ones. And that pretty much brings us to page 16 in that math book. So we'll stop there in that math book, and then I want to do a little bit of word problems, everybody's favorite. So we have on page 11 in the Go math book, Jane and Sarah both dive down from the surface of a pool. Jane dives down 5 feet and then dives down 3 more. So if she's at the surface of a pool, she's at 0, right? She goes down 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then she goes down 3 more. 1, 2, 3. So here is where Jane is. And then Sarah first dives down from 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 5 more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they are both at the same place.
Okay, hold on.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So-
need to just write that.
Yeah, we don't have to do the rest. I'm fine with that. And then on number 19, it says a golfer has the following scores for a 4-day tournament. Day 1, he gets a -3. Day 2, he gets a -1. Day 3, he gets a -5. And day 4, he gets a -2. So because all of them are negatives, we know that the total score is going to be a negative, and we just add all of these numbers together.
Okay.
So what do you...
11.
Yeah. And then we label our answer with the word points, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Which is a really good score. It's the only sport where negative numbers are good. Okay. Number 20. A football team loses 3 yards on one play and 6 yards on another play. So because they're losing yards, so in football, you have, here's where you start, and you have to get all the way over here. So suppose they're going and they get to right here and they lose 3 yards. That means they go back towards where they started, and then they lose another 6, they go back. So we would do -3 plus -6 yards as our problem. So what would the answer be, Shri?
Okay, -6 plus -3.
Mm-hmm. And then what would that be? How many total yards did he lose?
-9.
Yep. Okay. Now problem 22 is the temperature in Jonestown and Cooperville were the same at 1 o'clock. So I'm just going to write this out because it sounds like it's a lot of information. So I'm going to put J and C, same temperature. And then at 2 o'clock, Jonestown dropped by 10 degrees. And the temperature in Cooperville dropped by 6 degrees. So I'm going to put a -10 under J and a -6 under C. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
All right. By 3 o'clock, the temperature in Jonestown dropped 8 degrees. So I'm going to do -8 and Coopersville -2. So how much did the temperature change in Jonestown? So you're going to write and evaluate a sum to model the change to the temperature in Jonestown since 1 o'clock.
And it would be probably
Okay.
under root. That would be the view, but it would let
In Jonesville, it's 18 degrees.
Uh-huh.
-18.
That's right.
And then in Cooperville, it's -8 degrees.
Yep. So we're going to write it like this. -10 plus -8 equals negative 18. And then Coopersville is negative 6 plus negative 2 equals negative 8. And our label for our word problem is going to be degrees. I'm assuming they're doing Fahrenheit, so we're gonna put Fahrenheit.
Okay, wait, I need to write it.
And then for C, where is it colder at 3 o'clock? Jonestown or Coopersville?
Jonestown.
Yes, because they were at the same temperature. All right. Any questions about that?
No.
All right. The next word problem page is page 12. And we have, on Monday, Jan made withdrawals of $25, $45, and $75. On the same day, her twin sister Julie made withdrawals of $35, $55, and $65 from her savings account. So I want you to do A, B, and C. I'm going to stop